I thought it was appropriate to have a Jesuit leadership prayer since we're raising our students to be strong leaders in our community. In the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. This is from Galatians chapter 6, verse 9. Eternal Father, I pray that you will give every leader strength so they do not grow weary in their leadership role. Father, the task may seem overwhelming and exhausting, but I pray that every leader will recognize that are assigned to do your will. Therefore, I know that at the right time, they will reap the harvest if they do not give up. Lord, I pray for divine strength for every leader, and that they will not rely on themselves, but on you. Amen.
Okay, so how many of us are excited about our rising seniors? Woo! This is an exciting time. It's also a very nervous time, anxious time for our kiddos. And so we want to do our best by helping to prepare you guys with this presentation so that hopefully by the end of this evening, you feel confident about how to help your student through this senior year. And you feel good about next steps and how to best support them, okay? So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We'll go over what your junior, almost senior, should have completed by now, if they have followed the steps we have given them. Their summer to-do checklist, and then what the application plan is, and then how we do admissions here at Bellarmine. And so really, like I already said, we're just really hoping to temper some of that anxiety, some of those apprehensions, and really just let you guys know that you're in a good spot, you've done what you need to do thus far, and that we will be here to support you through this next step. So here's a little pulse to get a little idea of where we're at in the audience, where our knowledge is. And just an FYI, we are recording this presentation, so for those of us who are vigorous note takers, just know you will have a resource to refer back to in a couple weeks. We'll have this posted. So thinking about colleges in the U.S., what is our best guess on the approximate many of colleges and universities that are in the U.S., including private, public, community college, and technical schools? Do you think A, show your hands if you think it's about 1,500. B, if you think it's 2,800. C, if you think there's about 4,000 colleges and universities in the U.S. And then D, if you think it's about 5,500. Those who pick D are correct, all right? So hopefully that will show you that there are tons of colleges and universities for your student. Sometimes we only hear about the big ones, right? The Ivy Leagues, the highly competitive schools, UW, right? But there are so many out there. And so really it's about finding those schools, connecting with those programs, and really finding a school that's the best fit for your student, beyond what we know, okay? So really taking on that research right now, and that's what we're encouraging your students to do, okay? And then what about this next question? Approximately how many four-year colleges, universities admit at less than 33% of their applicants? How many admit less than 33% of their applicants? So those highly competitive schools. What do we think the percentage is on that? A, do we think less than or about 100? B, less than or about 430? C, less than 500 for those highly competitive selective schools? Or D, 875? All right? The answer is A, 100, all right? So again, we tend to think like these schools are not letting kids in. There's so many that there's not enough to get in. It's going to be competitive. But really, there's only about 100 of them that are really selective, that are only letting in about less than 33%. Okay? And then lastly, this is a good one. And if you guys had a chance to peek at our little map that we had over there, you might have been able to cheat. But what is the #1 in-state college that students are attending this year? What do we think? Any guesses? Throw them out. I hear Wazoo. I hear what? Just Wazoo? Then you would be correct. Okay, Wazoo was our #1 attended school this year, where students decided that they were going to go there. And it was interesting because we're seeing a wide range of balance between our schools. It used to be a couple schools were just over the top with all our admittances, and now we're seeing a nice widespread. So students are really considering and being thoughtful about where they're going and taking into account what's going to be their best fit. So Wazoo actually this year has our most admits, and that's only at 14. 14 of our students are going to Wazoo. Okay? The second highest was UW. Okay. What do you think is the #1 out-of-state college that our students are going to? What do you think? Actually, first I'll start there. What state do you think? Okay, good. Okay. All right, what school? I heard Cal Poly, I heard USC, USD, that's another one, that's another good one. Any other guesses? Santa Clara, that's another good one. It was Cal Poly, okay? That is where the majority of our students, and really that wasn't a high number, it's only 8. Okay, 8, and that's the majority of our students are going to Cal Poly. But California is our big #1 out-of-state school. Okay? So you guys are picking up on the trends and noticing where our students are deciding to go. And we as the counseling department are also noticing these trends. We're seeing how the changes in where our students are applying to and where they're deciding to ultimately make their decision have changed over the years. All right, this is just a glimpse of where our students have applied to, where they were admitted to. So you might see some of your schools, some of those popular ones on there. But just another shout out to our students are applying all over the country. They're getting admitted all over the country. But we're really seeing changes in where they're deciding to go. And then just a reminder of what the college admission process is looking for. So as many of you guys know, it's changed over the years, probably a lot so since when you went to school or myself. And so really colleges are looking at a holistic review. All right, so we have this acronym TREAT, and that's going to mean transcripts, letters of recommendation, essay, application, and test scores. These are those components that are within your students' control, right? That they have some kind of influence over, right? And what they're submitting to colleges. Again, colleges get to decide what students they're admitting. We don't know from year to year what colleges are looking for to fulfill their database, their admin students. It might be a particular program that they're looking to influx. There might be more males versus gender that they're looking to complete. There might be different avenues. So we don't know from which year what schools are looking for. What your student can do is to make sure that these components are to the best of their ability when they're applying. Okay? And then this is just a note about MISS. There's no secret formula into getting into your school of choice. All right, we don't have a magic wand or a formula that we can tell your student that's going to get them into their ideal school. And there are no specific extracurriculars or co-curriculars that they can take that's going to help them necessarily stand out. Right? We really want students to hear that they are building a resume that is authentic to them, right? Based on what they are interested in and what feels important to them, right? So it's not about filling a bunch of things so you can try to stand out to a college. Again, we don't know what that college is looking for, but it should be authentic to your student. What are their passions and interests? And we should be able to see a trend or a line that is consistent through their application process. The essay matches up with their interests, their co-curriculars match up with what they potentially want to study or what they're passionate about. Okay? And then winning essay. We see essays in all shapes and forms. Okay, so there's no one particular right way to write an essay. Again, it should be authentic to your student based on what they value about themselves, what they feel like is important, what stands out to them, what rings true to them. And then from there, they can create an essay that will help them stand out to colleges. It could be one story that highlights these adjectives or descriptions about themselves or milestone moments, or it could be a stream of stories that they're able to connect, that are able to highlight that. And we'll talk more about essays here in a minute. And then again, there's just no tip or trick, all right? The counseling department does a really good job of making relationships with the admission counselors around the world, all right? But it's not like we have an insight. We can't call up an admissions rep and say, hey, get this student in, we think they'd be great. It really is, those relationships allow us to make those connections and reach out to them and ask questions, but there is no easy route into admissions. It's based on the school, and we're just preparing students to present their best self so that they can get recognized. All right, so new this year, we wanted to include some of our parents. We have a lot of awesome alumni of Bellarmine families who have students who have went through this college admission process. And so we wanted to just give them a moment to also share their experiences, and hopefully those resonate with you all as rising senior parents, okay? So we're gonna take a moment just to break and get that prepared, and we're gonna invite our parents for the parent panel piece, all right? So just give us one moment. And then we do have one parent who is out of state, so she lovely accepted the offer to be here, but is going to join us via Zoom. So she can't see you all, but her head will be flooding, so we're just going to make her feel as comfortable as possible. All right, so let's go ahead and have Andrea go first. So we're going to allow our parent panel to just introduce themselves, their connection to Bellarmine, and we'll go down the road. But we'll let Andrea, our Zoom parent, go first to introduce herself. Andrea, can you hear us?
A little bit, yes.
Okay. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself and just let us know your connection to Bellarmine?
Sure. Our son went to Bellarmine from 2018 to 22 and graduated. And we've had a great experience with Bellarmine and stayed connected. And our son is currently at Lynn University in Boca, Florida.
Awesome. All right, Grant, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hello. Hi. Hi, I am Grant Horiuchi. My son is Hudson Horiuchi, and he just graduated. What else should you know? I'm going to give you a quick lowdown. Is that okay? Okay, I played hockey at Rochester Institute of Technology. I'm from Bellevue, and I got recruited to play hockey there. That's an NCAA Division III program, and I was a national champion for them. My son is a Division I recruit and is going to Wagner College to play lacrosse, NCAA Division I. And he started playing lacrosse in high school for O'Day, won state, didn't like that school that much, and came to Bellarmine and loved it. So he, as a sophomore, came over. He was captain of the lacrosse team his junior and sophomore year. And that's it, because I talk too much and I'm giving it to Mark.
Hello out there. My name is Mark Kling. My son is an incoming senior. He's a junior at Cameron this year, and I happen to be one of the varsity coaches of lacrosse with his great son here. And my background is fairly extensive. I'm a physician, and I'm in emergency medicine, and went to University of Illinois and through University of Chicago, I detracted from that for 8 years and coached in the National Hockey League with the Chicago Blackhawks, and then left and came back into medicine again. And then we moved here in 2015. And so I have a lot of extensive experience on people in various ages, mostly from sports. And we can get into that with any of you who have those discussions, but we have visited many schools in the past year and a half that I can get to the point that we moved out east last summer and actually lived in Baltimore and Philadelphia, and then toured schools, depending on what coaches call you and wanted to speak with you, which I just did this past weekend actually with Bowdoin, Johns Hopkins, and a fair amount. We just got back on Sunday night. So feel free to ask questions that I would love to entertain about visiting, especially speaking where your kid goes to school and visits schools and makes their own decisions about what they like and what they don't like, size, that kind of thing.
I am Julie Quesada, and I have 3 kids. My oldest just graduated, Santiago, and he's headed to UW in the fall. I was a college counselor at Mount Tahoma High School for a long time and continue to work with a lot of students today on just finding the right fit college and writing essays and things like that. Recruitment for athletics is not in my wheelhouse, so but I've gone through it with a lot of kids, and definitely I need to go through with my own son this year in a different way. So I'm excited to share that with you guys tonight.
Perfect, thank you. And we really just tried to be strategic and bring in parents that have different experience and expertise. Andrea is very experienced in working with students who are diverse learners or have special learning needs. So that's why I specifically asked her this evening. And so, Andrea, can she hear us? Can she hear us? Okay. Andrea, if you wouldn't mind sharing with our parents, when did you and your family start thinking seriously about college planning, and what was your first step?
Good questions. Well, I probably did some early searching, but I probably wouldn't call that seriously. Probably the sophomore year, we got serious. We started looking at some of the colleges that we thought were in the possibility. And that was really more for Nicholas to get a sense of what was he looking for, because he really had no idea. So sophomore year is when it all began, and then I really started trying to nail down some of the details of some of those colleges in the background on his behalf.
What helped you in looking for more specialized programs for Nicholas, knowing that he needed different needs as a student?
You know, several things. One was the KW, I call it the Bible, of all the colleges and their listings. That helped a lot. A lot of interaction with people at Bellarmine and the Learning Resource Center, talking to various contacts on things they knew about different colleges. We had to make a couple appointments at a couple colleges, which was a little bit of a task, to talk to their Learning Resource Center to see what did they really offer. And that was helpful. But probably the biggest thing that was helpful was spending time with our son Nicholas to get him to be very clear on what his strengths and weaknesses were, so that he would be comfortable with it and not want to hide it or be ashamed of it or anything like that. And a lot of time was spent on those kind of issues, which was very successful, by the way.
And then do you have any, looking back, were there any issues or challenges with providing those accommodations to the school of choice that Nicholas desired to go to?
There wasn't. Optional.
You're breaking up a little bit, Andrea. You're breaking up.
And
She was saying that she, based on his first program that he selected, that after the first semester they were able to clearly see that wasn't going to be a good fit for him, and so they were able to make adjustments second semester to get him in a program that was better suited for him. Okay, thank you so much. We had a little technical difficulties. All right, this is for anyone on our panel, but what was your role in helping your student meet deadlines and stay organized?
I have the microphone.
Yes.
I think it was at one of these parent meetings, somebody recommended having a weekly meeting. So my son and I had a Sunday standing meeting. And my role was just to read the emails that came from these guys, which is actually not a ton, it's not overwhelming. And then to sit down and say, hey, it looks like you have some deadlines, or especially when scholarships are coming up. And obviously my role was to take him to visit colleges and help walk through that stuff. But just on a more practical level, I set aside Sundays, and then I didn't ask him any questions the rest of the week. I didn't nag him, I didn't bug him, I didn't ask him if he talked to the teachers or turned things in, and then the next Sunday I'd say, okay, here's the 10 things you're supposed to do this week, what'd you get done? So it worked well for us. It kept a good relationship, I think, between the two of us, but also I felt like I could be part of it and not be overwhelming involved. So that's probably the best advice I was given, and it worked really well.
Thank you for that. That's a great answer. Mark, this is directed to you. Oh, did you want to answer that too?
I was just curious. I'm just curious, would you mention this, because I'm just curious how many parents do this. How many parents in here split the activities or split what they do with their son or daughter in terms of requirements for the week, like a weekly meeting? I'm just curious, like one person handles academics, one person handles the other extracurricular activities, or do you just do it together? How many split them? Okay, so very few.
Yeah, that's what
Okay.
we do. That's what we do. My wife takes that academic side, and she does like what you do, but it's a little more than once a week.
I likewise am definitely more than once a week, because my kid gets a little scatterbrained between sports and everything else that we're doing, so we split activities academically and non. Same with colleges when we discuss things, but I'll probably get into that in a second.
Yeah, and that's a great way. I think you have to, one, know your child, but I think like Julie said, you don't want to overwhelm them. You don't want this to be a negative experience, and so the best way that you guys can of having a touch base where it's not every day a constant nag, but also a way of helping guide them so that they're not missing anything either. We tell students too, like, put your parents on scholarships. That's their job. Let them search for scholarships, get them all lined up. You have to apply, but they might have time to research and to really find those scholarship listings.
I tried to also add in that stuff like, okay, when do you need a ride this week, or what are you driving to, or, and also like, what do you want at the grocery store? Are there any snacks you want? Just extra things to make them excited to meet with me. Like, if you want to add it to the grocery list, you gotta sit down on Sunday.
All right, Mark, how did you help your student research or visit colleges? You were sharing that you guys did an extensive path of researching colleges, and not everyone has that ability, but what did you find helpful about that?
I think, so, as you heard part of it, we have been to many, many schools. I was just talking to a gentleman right here at the second table who were competing on 26 visitations and that kind of thing. But we went to many visitations where I tried to expose him to many things in terms of size, because he would go through various issues where maybe I want a small school, maybe I want a large school. We did it based on recruitment of sports, because a lot of that is going to involve him this next coming year, and then we would narrow it down from there, and I would make all those tours with him. Most of ours, to be fair, were all out on the East Coast. This is where we were this weekend, and they basically all have been on the East Coast or in Canada. So I based it on what he thought he would like, his personality, and exposed him to each. My wife went to a very large school in Oregon. I played in Division III at a very small school at a place called Augustana College, which had 2,000 or 3,000 kids. So we tried to get a good feel of what he would like in his personality, and then are trying to fit that kind of accordingly to coaches and various teachers that we speak to, and what their requirements would be depending on what you feel your son or daughter would be capable of. And it all depends. We happen to be applying to a lot of high academic schools, And so it's a matter of whether there's a 5% or an 8% acceptance rate. So it just depends on what they feel they could offer and what your son or daughter feels most comfortable with. I was very in tune with doing all the tours with him, talking with all the teachers with him. I attended all the orientation lectures with him just to see how he felt in each one of them. And we're still ongoing. We'll probably do at least 10 more this summer, in all likelihood.
Yeah. And that's a lot, right?
So
Okay.
anybody who has any questions, I'm happy to talk to you about that. It's a lot.
So we have like the nominee.
You don't need to have this at that many if you don't want to.
Yeah, follow Mark later. I mean, he has pictures, he has a slideshow, all that stuff.
I get it.
So if you're not able to go in person, you can check with him. But we also advise our students too. Like, we know everyone can't get on site to some of their schools. And so also checking out the schools around here. We have UPS, that's right down the street. Great example of a mid-sized school. We have UW, that's up the street in Seattle. Great example of a large campus. And then we have PLU, that's right here in Parkland. That's a great example of a small, more intimate campus.
I'm going to jump on that real quick too, is it can be overwhelming for your child, unbelievably overwhelming. And a lot of parents I've talked to really think that they shouldn't be involved and let your kid just do it all, and that is not the route to do. You got to be a team with your kid. They've got so much on their plate, it's unbelievable. I made this spreadsheet. Hudson had like 65 schools that wanted to go to his school, and they would just bombard him with emails and coaches calling them and all this sort of stuff. And he would come to me and just like, I don't want to go to Rochester, and boom, there goes my school, RIT, and I was crushed, but that's fine. But we would like have this spreadsheet of who we talked to, and I'd help him out, and Nancy would help him out by writing emails to the coaches, and kind of, some coaches know it's you, or even administration would know it's you, but nobody cares. They know that the parent is helping the kid out. So what basically jumping on him, one thing you got, if you're an athlete or just a kid or just a parent or a kid, just keep everything open-minded to any school. You just don't know until the time comes.
I think one of the sayings I used it a lot this year is, it's a big thing with a lot of guys out east, a lot of coaches out east, is always remember you play life a lot longer than you play lacrosse. And that is very vitally important, because if he couldn't play lacrosse or do anything else, would he still go to that school? Would your kids still go to that school if they suddenly had to change a major and took a right-hand or left-hand turn and something changed their mind? Would they still be happy? And I know that's a lot to weigh, but if you can do it, it definitely narrows a lot of your choices and the things you meet.
And I'm giving it to you. And that happened to Hudson. Of the like 3 D1 schools, actually 5 D1 schools, that he had turned down 4 of them because he knew he wasn't going to go to St. Bonaventure in the middle of Pennsylvania. And when Wagner came calling, and it was in New York City because his sister went to NYU and he loved New York City and he wanted to work at Wall Street, he was in. Even though the program wasn't the best program, he also knew he could play there, maybe as a freshman.
All right, the non-athlete facets of college. So I took my kiddo and a friend to California to do what I often tell is the same thing that you said, is visit a big city school, a big school and rural, a small school, a mid-sized school. So we went down to California, to Oakland. We visited Santa Clara, mid-sized private school, UC Berkeley, big city school, and then we visited Stanford, more competitive, middle-sized school. And ultimately, my kiddo applied to just Santa Clara, but what it did was gave him language. What do you like? What feels good to you? And we did visit other schools. We went back east. We visited some in the Midwest. But at that point, he wanted kind of a mid-sized Jesuit school. And so then that helped me be able to make a list, like you said. So then we started looking at, okay, what are the other Jesuit schools that are, have D1 sports because you wanted to watch basketball or football. So I always say, whatever, you can tell me anything you want. We visited Notre Dame, and he got to the hotel, and he said, is there water nearby? And I was like, no, it's Chicago. Like, we pulled up the map. He's like, get me out of here. I was like, well, you know what? There's 5,500 colleges in the U.S., so whatever they decide is a breaker, that's great. But I just think it's good, and it really is, we have it right here. Go visit UW Seattle, visit Seattle University, visit, if Tacoma feels too weird, like go visit University of Portland. It's really easy to do right here and give them the opportunities. And then once they apply, you also have time to visit again in the fall after they've applied. So don't feel stressed that you haven't visited now. I also would say it's tough to visit in the summer when there's no students on campus because it's really hard for them to see themselves there and feel like, I always say, walk around and see if you, do you see your people? Can you feel like you can find yourself here? And if there's no kids, there's no students on campus, that's tough. So it is kind of ideal. Colleges do kind of a bad job of having Saturday tours, so you do need to plan a little bit ahead to do that. But it is worth it to get them on campus.
I have one more question for you, Julie.
Yeah.
While you have the mic, how did you identify, and this is one of the reasons we wanted you here, but how did you identify scholarships that would be a good fit for your student? And did you consider the FAFSA, why or why not?
So my child didn't get any scholarships. He probably applied to 20, 30. I did go through the scholarship search and said, hey, my gift to you is I will search them all out for you. He's a Latino male with really high stats, and he applied to a lot of scholarships, and he didn't get any of them. I don't know what to say. So he tried to apply to some that Ms. Ford sent that were more local. He applied to big ones, and ultimately he chose UW. And one of the deals, so part of applying to FAFSA and stuff, and one of the piece of advice I would say to you guys is talk to your kids about how much you're willing to pay, because that was a huge decision in how much we told him we were willing to pay. And ultimately, Villanova was his dream school, and it was $95,000 a year. And then when he got into UW at 35, he looked at us and he's like, because we told him he had to pay half, and he was like, yeah, I think I can afford this one. And so I've walked with too many kids who apply to schools that they can't afford, and the parents think they're going to get scholarships. And I'm here to say, my kid's a super high stats kid with a ton of APs, a ton of involvement, and he didn't get any scholarships. So now, outside scholarships. He did get plenty of scholarships at universities. Santa Clara gave him $20,000, Seton Hall gave him $35,000. So he got merit-based scholarships to the schools he applied to a lot. And that is more what I would say is how we looked for scholarships, was more chasing the merit, I would say. So we didn't qualify for need-based financial aid, so I worked really hard with him on finding schools that gave merit money, and that's what you want to ask, is if they give merit money, and not every school does. So the smaller liberal arts colleges are more generous. I think PLU gave him $37,000. And then as far as you asked about the FAFSA, that was a discussion with my husband of whether we fill the FAFSA out or not. First off, it takes about 5 minutes to fill out because they have all of your information. So as soon as you type in your name and social security number, it kind of pops up. If anything happens and changes in your life, like next year, say my husband loses his job, the FAFSA is filled out, we can do a change of circumstance. If we never filled it out and that happens, we can't refill it out for that school year. So we filled it out even though we knew we wouldn't qualify for like a Pell Grant. We did do the CSS profile. I don't know. It was 2 schools asked for that, Villanova and Santa Clara. So we just did what was asked for. We figured for the first kid we would do that and see. I don't think there's any harm in filling out the FAFSA. They already know how much money you make. So, yeah.
I would emphasize that as well. Always apply for all the merit stuff. All the merit stuff, yes. I can piggyback on something close to her, as a matter of fact. A good friend of mine who lives in Mercer Island, his son is one of the captains of the defense, will be this year at Villanova. And he's actually playing football there this year, and they applied, and they're very well off. They applied for merit scholarship. He got half the stuff paid for after his full ride. They still applied for the merit scholarships, you guys, they still got them. The smaller schools definitely give you and offer you more. I can tell you from my experience already, as we're crossing schools off the list, there's already the merit-based scholarships of people I talked to even this weekend that will offer you more than they would at larger schools where it's much more anonymous.
No doubt about it. Sorry my wife's not here. She's an accountant and she would have given you all the money side. So I'm going to try to give you as much as I can say and remember, but the merit money is your GPA. So make sure your kids know that when it comes down to it, get that GP rolling up, 3.5 and up. If your kid's an athlete, 3.5 and up. The doors are open for you, but it's really the money. Sometimes it's 10 grand. 3.5 to 3.7 is worth 10 grand. 3.7 to 3.8 could be 20 grand. I'm not kidding you. Merit money is all on your GPA. So get that GPA you want. Motivate your kid. Tell them it's that GPA. Some guy at the panel today was telling me about your GPA. Get it up. It means more money.
They have like a week to get it done.
Okay, so your younger kid, so if you got an 8th grader who's coming to Bellarmine,
But yeah, it's the GPA.
This is the GPA they're sending in. What they end with right now, junior year, because they're going to apply in November of their senior year. So they're going to see this GPA and then what classes they chose to take senior year, and that's what they're going to see. So take a rigorous load, even if they don't need it. It shows that they want to learn, right? So, but this is the GPA.
All right, last question. We have 2 minutes. But what would you do differently now going through this process? What would be your advice to these parents who are getting ready to go through this? If anything, what would you do differently now?
well, this is probably not really what I'd say, but I'd say it is, do you really want the AP? So for Hudson, he didn't need it because Wagner, whatever, he always won the hardest classes even his senior year. But he really didn't truly needed it because he's an athlete. But he always, so his GPA went down because he was so busy taking 5 AP classes when he could have taken 1. So his GPA went down even though he could have taken easier classes, but he didn't because he's such an overachiever kind of guy. But here he is working out on graduation day. He goes to the gym before he graduates. So he's that kind of a dude. Other than that, that's it.
Perfect.
I don't think so. My kid did take AP classes, and I think I have told my other kids, if you can't get an A in the AP, then don't take it the next year, because it does affect your GPA. But if you can take them, I mean, he's walking into UW with 20 credits, so it's going to afford him to be able to start a little slower, study abroad, do things he wants to do, because we're still planning on paying for 4 years of school. So I think it's only going to give him a leg up, and I think it shows them how to study and how to work hard on projects and things when they get to college, because ultimately the goal is not to get into college, the goal is to graduate college. And I always tell my kids, if you love where you are, you're going to graduate. So find the right fit for your kid, help them find the right fit. Don't worry about the name. You see all the schools in that beautiful thing that David Oniel put together. Kids are going all over the place. It doesn't matter the name of their school. It matters that they love where they are. And so I wouldn't take any of it back. I traveled all over the U.S. with my kid, and people are like, you ended up at UW. Yep, absolutely. And I had the best time visiting schools with him and going through the process with him. So you guys will have fun. It's just don't stress. It's good.
One thing I've noticed, you guys, in this upcoming process is many schools, although they're increasing in Tawana, could tell you about that. The SAT and the ACT, there are many schools that is an optional program too, that you do or don't have to turn those in. Many of those schools will ask you for ongoing transcripts. So some of the schools we've been interested in, I've been sending in transcripts since the second semester of freshman year. So some schools will not require you to turn in an SAT or an ACT, but they will ask you for ongoing transcripts. That happens to be in athletic orientation, but don't fret if your kid doesn't, they're a great student, they don't do well on a test score. There are plenty of options out there, you guys, where they don't do that, and that's some of the highest powered universities, quote, in this country. So you can take your option. It's nice to have that option if you look at it. Your kid happens to look at school like that.
I get one more.
Oh,
I get one more because my daughter did take a bunch of AP classes. She got into the University of Washington for, astrophysics. and she went to the UW for 2 years for free. And then when she applied to NYU, she couldn't get in when she was a senior, but then she transferred to NYU after her sophomore year and graduated computer science for at NYU. So she thinks all those AP classes and went to the U panned out for her. So I go back on that AP stuff. I go back to what she says. It always works out. It doesn't really matter truly. If everybody's achieving for Stanford, it's totally cool if they go to U or whatever. Whatever the kid is happy with, it really matters that you look the person in the eye, you shake their hand, you work hard, and you're going to achieve no matter what you do.
Can we give it up for our panel of parents? Thank you guys so much. We appreciate you taking the time to be here. You can go ahead and excuse yourselves. Thank you guys. One more time for our parent panel.
We'll hang around for any questions.
So I think they said it best. We're really just trying to make sure students are finding their right fit. What's going to be the best for them that they are going to get admitted to and finish that 4-year degree. And it can look a lot of different ways. Like was mentioned, sometimes APs can be a good way. Dual credits are also a good thing. But there's no guarantee at any school, so I would encourage you to make sure your student is talking to their admission reps to make sure what is accepted at that school that they're interested in and see what qualifies and what doesn't. Sometimes with AP scores, you have to have a certain score in order for you to get credit, okay? And then also too, just making sure that we're being mindful about how we're setting up our senior year schedule, all right? We don't want to just load it up just frivolously with different classes that we can't maintain, all right? But we also want to be strategic in knowing that schools will be looking at your senior schedule and making sure that you're still staying rigorous with what you can handle, okay? All right, how are we feeling? Good? Okay, good. All right, so this is where we are right now with our students. They should have been in to meet with us for their junior meeting. We have a couple of them coming in now, those stragglers, but we are still accepting them and welcoming them. Okay, so check in with your junior to make sure they have had their junior meeting. And then they should have created their Common App at this point. Right now, all they're doing is creating that account and making sure that it is with their B-Prep email. And then later on, we'll take them through steps on how to match their Common App with their Naviance so that we can ensure documents, transcripts, letters of rec are getting to the schools that they're applying to, okay? And then taking the SAT or the ACT, we have the opportunity here in the spring for your junior to take the SAT. We will have another opportunity in the fall, October 15th, for them to take that as well, okay? And then if they are considering the ACT, that is outside of us, and they will need to look at ACT.org to check out those testing dates. I believe there should be one more in August for the ACT. And then starting their Common App essay, and we'll talk more about that. All right, just in case you were not aware, we are partnering with the English department to support our students with their essays. Relatively, every student will write an essay to some extent. If they are applying through the Common App, there is an essay requirement, okay? And then there could be additional supplemental questions that their colleges will require. And so we're partnering with our English department to ensure that they are helping support our students with those opportunities so that when they leave for the summer, they have some tentative ideas of what they might want to write about and possibly some rough drafts. And so we are making sure that they are ready with a quality Common App essay, that they strategize their own qualities and seeing what their strengths are, what's going to help them stand out, what's going to highlight them, and that they're choosing a story that is a right fit for them. Here are some condensed Common App essay prompts. We have seen all kinds of essays, okay? So there is no perfect essay. Again, this should be true to your student. What is resonating with them? What speaks true to their story and what they are about? If it is able to get more, we want to read this essay, and as somebody who may not know your student very well, I should have some insight into who they are, what they are about, what they are passionate about, and where they might be wanting to go at this time. And so that's really their opportunity to really speak to the person who is reading their application and stand out outside of test scores, GPA, and letters of rec, for them to really speak for their own selves. And then no matter which essay you choose, the goal is to stand out so that colleges are able to see you as a person, as an individual, separate from GPA and scores. So we want to make sure that we're grabbing the reader, that it reveals some unique qualities about your student, that it may demonstrate some lessons learned, a growth mindset, or their passions, and that the content aligns again with their story, who they are as a person. And so in English, they have already helped your student at this point identify 3 to 5 key traits about themselves. They've reflected on their life and those traits thus far in their young lives as juniors. They've incorporated passions, how they plan to contribute to the campus, and just kind of looking like their overall contributions. And then they've completed a rough draft, okay? So that they leave in going into summer with something that they can work with or build upon. And then we have continued opportunities. I just want to plug our college essay writing course. That's happening over the summer. There's still time to sign up for that. You can do that through my Bellarmine. But that is going to be taught by Mrs. Harrison. And so really students will have an in-depth time to really focus on those essays and come out with a working draft that they feel really confident about after this course. And then we'll also have happy hours here in the fall for our seniors. And so that's another opportunity outside their senior meeting where they can come and meet with a counselor. We have our college counseling conference room. And so there will be a counselor there every Wednesday after the 17th of September. That will be there from 2:30 to 3:30, and we'll just be there. We call it happy hour. We'll have snacks, we'll hang out, and students can really schedule that time to come and work on applications. It's really a good idea for them to set that time apart, or they can just come and pop in with questions that they might have about their application or essay. And we're happy to read, give feedback, tell them if we get the goosies, all right, and really support them through that process. And then this is another resource we just wanted to share if you wanted to highlight that or take a picture. It's the essay writing resource. This is offered through the College Guide. You can scan that, and he has lots of free resources and guides, prompts, just strategies to help you how to get started, what you should include or should not include in writing your essay. All right, and now we're going to talk about the application process with Mrs. Ford. Let's give her a round of applause.
Briefly to go over the process that we use here at Bellarmine to help your student apply to college. So there's a long list. A lot of you have a list, kind of a checklist. Your student also received that from us in both their sophomore meeting, if they came to that, and their junior meeting, if they came to that. And now hopefully you have a copy as well. There's kind of 4 big pieces that need to happen over the summer. And if they don't happen over the summer, they have to happen before they schedule their fall senior meeting with us. And that meeting needs to happen at least 1 month before their earliest deadline. So if your child is planning on applying early to any schools, October 15th is generally the earliest application deadline you're going to see, which if we scroll back, that means we're 2 weeks into the school year. So they really need to make sure that when they receive that email from us about scheduling their senior meeting, to get on it and to have these 4 components ready to go. If you are on my Bellarmine and go to our counseling tile and scroll down, you'll see a senior summer to-do list. And that's got 4 components. There's their application plan, we'll talk more about that. A brag sheet for their recommendations. So that's just something for them to fill out that they can then send to the teacher they've already asked, hopefully they've already asked a current junior year core class teacher to write their recommendation. How would one do that? One would politely go up to a person in real life and ask if they can write a recommendation letter for them, and then follow up with an email confirming that they're willing to write that recommendation letter so a teacher has something to hold on to rather than a conversation in a hallway. Yeah? Let's check in with our students about that. So the brag sheet needs to happen. And then there's also a senior questionnaire. That's for us. It's a Google form that they fill out. That helps us both get to know your child a little bit better. We hopefully have gotten to know them over their time here. But again, some folks only come into us for those 15-minute kind of windows of time for those appointments. So we want to get to know them a little bit better so we can help make recommendations for that college list that they're building. We want to get to know them so we can write them a really strong counselor recommendation letter as well. So that link is on there. And then there's instructions for what Tawana referenced earlier, which is matching their Common App account that they should have already created with their Naviance account. Naviance is kind of our tool that we use that hopefully you've been in before to do that college searching and building that college list. And they need to match that to their Common App account so that they're speaking the same language when we send documents. That's why it's really vitally important, and I'm just going to emphasize it again, that when they create their Common App account, they create it with their Bellarmine email address. Okay. What's the Common App? It's a streamlined process. It's a system that allows you to apply to many, many different colleges at once. So almost every school that your child is going to want to apply to is going to be connected to Common App. That's what we find. Students create their account. They can do that now. They can't do anything with their account until August 1st, but they can create an account so that they know they have that set up properly, and that kind of takes some of the pressure off. August 1st, they can start adding colleges to Common App, and then they can kind of gather all of the materials that they're going to need to create that account. So the things that we recommend that they have in front of them when they're going to sit down and do this would be kind of a resume or a list of activities. Naviance has a resume building tool that we've pointed out to them several times, so ideally they could use that and have that ready to go. A personal statement or essays, an unofficial transcript that they can download from My Bellarmine so that they can fill out their class list. And then something that's different this year that's up here, the language we needed, we didn't get that updated, but it's called, the community disruption statement is now called like a challenges and special concerns statement. The community disruption statement is left over from COVID. That kind of allowed students to have a little bit of a short essay or a paragraph explaining anything that they wanted to offer colleges about the impact of the pandemic on their lives. This challenges and special circumstances piece would also be a time that students could highlight anything that's happened in their experience of high school that they think colleges might not get another way, right? So if your child has a freshman year blip on the transcript, they might want to talk about it here. If your child has special circumstances that they need more support for their learning, they might want to talk about that here. And that's something that they should come and speak to us about so that we can help them develop what that's going to look like. So I wanted to highlight that. Some colleges don't accept the Common App. The most common schools that we see our students applying to, the UC schools and the Cal State schools. And they don't have the same special thing. They have two separate special things. So there's a Cal State application and a UC application. So those are still applications that you can apply to all the UC schools through the UC app and all the Cal State schools through the Cal State app, but it's two separate things. It's all the same stuff. There's no surprises there, right? It's still the kind of 5 pieces that we talked about earlier in the applications. It's just in another system, so it gives your students just to have another to-do list item. The application plan, that is one of those 4 components on their summer to-do list, it's a form that we use to kind of finalize a student's list of colleges in rank order, and we see it as a contract between us and them. We don't know what they want us to, where they want us to send documents, or what they want us to be doing in terms of a letter of rec, right? Unless we can guarantee that they're not surprising us with by adding colleges to their list, either in Common App or in Naviance. And so we need this piece of paper, this document. If there's changes that are going to be made, we need them to fill out a new form and submit that to us. Again, you can look at this right now on the counseling tile in My Bellarmine. And then we'll also be sending out that list with a link to this as well. This is what it looks like. Wow. So again, this application plan, they need to have it complete before they meet with us for their senior meeting, which is going to happen how early before their first deadline? 1 month. Yes, we've done it. Okay. This is in rank order, right? That's why we say in order of preference. So ideally, we've got a list of 1 through 9 schools. And then one of the things that we have, the reason all of this information is included is because we're hoping to help students understand what they need, right? Oh gosh, I need another letter of rec, or oh, this school does want an essay or doesn't want these things, so that this can kind of help them build that list and know what they need to have done. And again, they bring this to us, and once they sign it, we see it as a contract. For this college application plan, and what we've all told all of our sophomores and juniors, right, is that ideally we apply to 9 schools. That's kind of our recommendation. It's a good mix of likely, some of you might use the term safety school, right? A likely school, so 3 likelies, 3 target schools, and 3 reach schools. That's our recommendation. Again, some of our students apply to fewer, some of our students apply to more, keeping in mind that there's a cost to applying to school, right? And then the last thing to highlight in this R process that we use is Naviance. Again, hopefully you've been in Naviance before. If you haven't, let us know that so we can help you navigate how to get on there. You all have Naviance accounts. So if you and your students, they might claim they don't, but they do. They've had one since freshman year. Some of them haven't utilized it, but they do have a Naviance account. This is how we send their transcripts, their letters of recs, and how we know where they're applying. And then this is also how we track their acceptances and where they end up going. So it's really important for them to use that. Naviance also has a number of tools for them to plan. So aptitude pieces, personality things, learning styles, and our kind of highlight thing that we love to talk to students about is these common data sets that they have, where you can look at scattergrams and see next to Bellarmine students, specifically Bellarmine students that have applied to these schools, where do I fit with my GPA and test score? And are students like me getting in? Are they getting waitlisted? Are they getting declined? So those scattergrams are really helpful, and they're specific to Bellarmine. So that's one of the things that makes that tool in Naviance a particularly good tool to use when you're looking at that kind of information. Okay, speaking of test scores, Katie Keene.
Good evening, everyone. It's great to see so many of you turn out again. As we dive into these college applications, one topic that always sparks a lot of conversation is standardized testing. So tonight we're going to break that down for you and give you the tools to help your student make the right decision that's smart and confident. Whether they test, prep, or they just opt out altogether. So first of all, it's important to know that not all colleges require test scores. In fact, more than 2,100 schools are test optional or test blind. And so in the context of college admissions, you might come across test blind or test free. They are synonyms. They both mean that the SAT and the ACT test score will not be considered in part of the admission process, even if the student submits it, okay? You can find the full list of test optional schools or test blind schools at fairtest.org. And this is great news for those students who shine in other ways and they don't feel that their standardized test score really reflects their true potential. So that said, if your student is considering schools that do require a test score or recommend testing, if they want to strengthen their application, I would recommend preparation. We know that that makes a big difference. So every student learns differently, and test prep really should be matching their goals, their timeline, and their budget. The research shows it can lead to some increases that are significant, and especially if it's focused, consistent, and then tailored to the student's needs, whatever type of learner they are. It's not about doing the most, though, I would say. It's about doing what works best for them. So in your packet, you'll find a list of trusted prep resources, and that would help you find the right fit, perhaps, if you don't already have a method. And we're excited to share that we do have an upcoming ACT, SAT boot camp, one more time offered to your students on August 22nd through the 24th. So they give 20 hours of time to this one weekend, giving them an opportunity to expose themselves to both tests. It would be unofficial, but they actually take it as like in the setting of official terms, and get exposure, get tips, and then retake the tests again at the end of the course to see how they improved or which one they would do better. This boot camp is offered by tutors across America for our discounted price is $199. If you're interested, you can go directly to tutorsacrossamerica.com and be on the lookout for their postcard that you'll receive in the mail. Yes?
I just had a question about the SAT testing, because no one had talked to my son about whether or not, I guess they asked me, do you want us to automatically send these test scores? And he didn't really know, and he opted to do it, and I was like, So was that, what was the guide? Because he did do the prep course, and I thought that they were going to discuss what to do with that. So what's the cost?
Well, now that the test is digital, they get to check that on their own. We, as a proctor, aren't allowed to speak. They initiate the test through the system. So the advice would be, I would say no. I would not send an automatic test report. I don't think it's expensive. I think the report to send might be $16, but I sure would like to know what the score was, especially with the fact that there's 2,100 schools that are test optional, and it may not help, right? So that's my best advice. I don't automatically send test reports. Considering we're walking up to a deadline, of course, in the fall, so that being said, there may be a rush, but I'll get to that in just a moment. So again, lots of options for test prep and time to prepare. We, as Mrs. Wilson said, we're going to offer another SAT in-house here for seniors at Bellarmine. Registration is going to open in September, so please keep an eye out for an internal email that will be sent that you can opt to sign in for. It's not something you sign up for on College Board's website. It's a great option for students who just prefer a familiar environment. It's also one last chance to test or retest for a super score. Bonus tip, those of you who haven't heard that term, many colleges super score, which means they'll take the highest section score from multiple test dates to create a composite score. So if your student takes the SAT or ACT more than once, it can be worth it to the colleges to consider their top scores from each section. And just a note, scores may take 2 to 4 weeks to be returned, which means you might not see them until mid-November, possibly. So know that their score has to be received by the school by the deadline of their application to be considered. And it will be your student's responsibility to send the test report, the scores, to their future prospective colleges. Okay. Then, once you have the scores, the big question becomes, should we send them? And so use Naviance, that's our first recommendation. Check out Naviance scattergrams to compare your students' scores with past Bellarmine students for your specific colleges on that list. You also would be wise to check out their common data set, which you would Google. Just Google common data set and then the school to see what the middle 50% score ranges are for students admitted nationally to their school. And my suggestion, if it's a bit below the average, consider sending it if the rest of the application is strong and the score is still competitive. But if it's significantly below, it may be best just to apply test optional. And then you can feel free to reach out to us as school counselors if you want to discuss in more detail or interpret the scores with your student, and we'll help you walk through that. Okay. So I'd like to bring up Mr. Scotty.
So I have the pressure to follow the panel for scholarships. It was informative. I think a lot of things you're going to hear from me are what the panel already talked about, which was really good. So just looking at the average cost of attendance for living on campus at different universities, public and private, you could see 1 year, and these are just average numbers here, but for in-state public four-year university, about $27,000 per year, 108 for the 4 years. Out of state, a little bit more. We're going to talk about WUI scholarships too. 45,000, some considerably more, as you might have seen. 182,000 for 4 years. And then nonprofit private universities are looking at close to 60,000 and 234,000. I know this is some recent data that's coming from May of last year from educationdata.org. Okay, so just did you know, considering these stats, 42% of students graduate within 4 years' time. Anybody here graduate in that time? 4 years? Oh my goodness. Good for you guys. I'm fairly impressed. I was one of the 97% that graduated within 6 years. 4.5, okay? So not quite 6. But you could see a lot of, quite conservatively, maybe there's people that are working, I know, even athletes to maybe take that 1 year extra. Some will possibly redshirt. So a lot of things to consider with that. Another option is going to a 2-year community college in-state school. You can see it's quite considerably less, 3,800, about close to 4,000 there. And my dad likes to say that's a great option. And I've had some students go through and take that route, and they're laughing all the way to the bank. They take that 2-year degree and transfer to a 4-year school and have done really well. Either way, we try to support students in whatever journey they have. Like our panel was saying, there's a number of ways to graduate. It's not about the school. It's really about their happiness and going through school. Okay, and again, you guys did a great job. This panel did a great job about the conversations with your family with your financial decision. I think Julie hit it on the nose about all these great schools and the cost, and that's what we kind of talk about with students. We see a lot. I want to add to just a few things as well with that. Students who understand the college cost beforehand they can recognize the impact on their choice, especially if they have loans to pay back, right? Or if they're looking to do that, or having their families help them. They can also feel, and we see this directly, feel really empowered that they're part of this, right? That they have people that are supporting them, but this is their life. This is their decision. I always say, when they come, it's like, they have their list, and I go, wait a second, hold on. Is this a school that you want, or your folks want? And sometimes they get the right answer, like, this is what my folks want. It's like, maybe we should decide on what you want. That's a good decision, right? So we do have those talks, and I think it becomes a partnership between us and the parents and obviously the student with us. So just, and this is when they're moved past that as they're becoming rising seniors and going into it. But a lot of times we can see that pressure that students have, within especially with their peers. going into this last stage before they start applying. We want to make sure they're coming in and they're authentically applying for what they want to follow, instead of kind of going with the name of the school. I think that comes up quite a bit. And this is the looking at the avoiding the negative feelings of being restricted. Where you can go, where you ultimately decide where to go. So the question is, how much are you able or willing to pay? And what role should your student have in paying for college? I think we kind of touched on that here. I want to get into just an example. You guys were sharing that in the panel about GPAs. I think that's true. Students are going to be rewarded a lot of times with certain scholarships. It's a sliding scale. So between 3.8, I'm using Regis specifically. You guys probably heard me last time talk about this, but one of the reps came here. He was one of the financial directors, and they came here, sat down with me, because I had just visited there and took a tour around a lot of the schools in Colorado. And they said right away, we want Jesuit students. We want Bellarmine students. We're willing to give, even if the GPA is not around the 3.9, but it's 2.8 to 3 point. There's a sliding scale. He gave me the figure like they're going to give them up to 22,000 just for that. As they go higher, 3.8 and above, we're talking 28,000. And then this added 6,000 as other scholarships. So most schools, most Jesuit schools will do that. I've had 3 students from Loyola Chicago were offered over 30,000. So private schools, Jesuit schools, especially with Bellarmine, are willing to give those, some more than others. Regis was really generous. Their population is about 2,000, just under 2,000. So they had more opportunity to do that at that time. But I can't speak enough about the scholarships through the universities, where merit is a big thing. Once you apply, you're going to see money. Judy talked really well about that. I will say, like her Santiago was my student. He was very independent. Getting into Villanova is an A+ school, and we have to make those decisions about cost, because when it comes down to it, UW is a fantastic school as well. So. Yeah, the traditional students, as it says, are considered for merit scholarship up to 30,000. That's kind of the limit that I see. I'm sure there's other scholarships on top of that students can do as well. Yeah, and fitting together the financial puzzle, right? How families are utilizing the multiple resources. We have your personal, obviously all the things that we have. Investments, private loans, your 529 plans, the institutional, like I said, the merit scholarships, school-specific scholarships, athletic scholarships as well, federal, FAFSA grants, loan offers, and then work study. I can tell you personally that, for me, going to college, I used all these. My parents helped me. There was some athletic scholarships, and then I did work study. I feel bad when I see what the cost is now for colleges. I apologize, it's sometimes over the top, it's outrageous for some of the education that's out there. But I think there's a lot of deals out there as well, especially with the schools that offer some really good, we're talking the Ruby scholarships based on your GPA. That's what they're basing a lot of it on, is their GPA. Boise State is a great example of one of those schools. 3.5, and if nothing else for your student, we really want to encourage that. And we want to make sure that we're not, students are working as hard as they can and the challenge just enough. As far as AP classes, I'm a big fan of picking classes that are at their level, that can be challenging for them. because at the end of the day, it is about the GPA. You know, of course, AP classes help, and you can get, you know, some classes earned or some credits earned once you go to schools. But having a good GPA within their range where they're not forced and they're not trying to keep up with their other classmates. I think that's a big concern. I don't have too much time to talk about that. But when they're challenged just enough, they don't have to be forced to be taking the AP classes. I think that's, and I don't know if I stand on an island there, but I really think that students should be taking AP classes if they want to, if they feel that there's that's their level. But there's nothing wrong. Our classes also are college level. Every single one of our classes are college level. If they're able to do so, they definitely should take AP classes, honors classes. But if they don't, it's not going to hurt them to get into some of these schools, like a Boise State or an Oregon State, Colorado State. We have a number of, you know, it's over 170 movie schools that are around the country that we can do the exchange with. So just with the various types of scholarships, I'm probably going to reiterate here. I don't know much about the lottery, except it's just like what it sounds. When you put your name in a lottery for money, then you could get your name called. I don't know if you guys have ever had a student that's done a lottery and gotten picked. Okay, I haven't. I'm waiting for that. I want to win the lottery myself. But all the other ones, like I said, the WUI scholarships, if you need information, let us know about that. There's a website that's really good. The application deadline is usually the end of the month. You're not going to get the same scholarship as everybody else. You do have to do better with the GPAs to qualify for those. But back to Boise State, their top scholarship is $15,000 after a 3.5 or higher. Okay, anything lower than that, then they're in the next range, which is about 10,000, and the lower range, which is about 5,000. So they're offering money, but that's one example. And we've had a number of students, if you look at the map, that actually are going to Boise State. I don't know what the number is. It's about 5 or 6, but that's a little bit. That's about twice as much as we've had last year. And so students are kind of looking at that. Really good students too, looking at that school, among other ones as well. Merit too, like I mentioned, essay, financial need. The panel talked about the athletic scholarships. And then one example I want to use is the ethnicity. National scholarships are always really difficult to get because you're competing against so many. You know, Julie spoke about Santiago going for the scholarships. And it's true, they're very competitive. There's so many out there. You're gonna get more, you know, applying for the merit-based scholarships, but you're just competing against a large number of students, maybe more than we've had, you know, going to school. But ethnicity, I had a student a few years ago get about $7,000 or $8,000, and I'll just share this with you. He was Italian American, so his mom basically was after him. He submitted applications for the sons and daughters of Italy. And he'd come back and he'd go, Mr. Scott, you got another scholarship. I was like, great, add that too. And he just kept, so you kind of have to look for those specifically. I've talked to other students, some in the Filipino community, that had that same kind of, you know, foundations around Washington. And so I was always you know, pushing for students to do that if they, you know, were considering writing essays for that, for ethnicity. So lots of money, obviously, that we know is still out there, just for ethnicity and culture. Okay, scholarships, I'm gonna wrap this up here. We know they're readily available even if you're not low income. You don't have to have a 4-point GPA. You don't have to have athletic ability or fill in the blank. They're out there. We have the ones that we go to. One resource I want to add, or I want to give to you guys if you haven't already used it, and it's been a real big one for me. Not so much with scholarships, but working with students. I feel that it's very user-friendly. I was in the National Counseling Conference, NACAC, this last year and met with a rep, a wonderful resource called Niche, or Niche, no matter how you pronounce it, I'm not sure what's correct, but NACHE.com. So you just plug in a school, it's going to give you a ranking, it's going to give you a list of financial breakdowns for the school, and scholarships too. So if you're interested in any school, that's my first approach when working with a student. You just put it in school. It helped me help a student decide on 2 schools. They're deciding between what it was Santa Clara and University of Utah, both similar, but I knew this student wanted more of a bigger like sports and kind of social atmosphere. I think he picked Utah, and so it kind of helped look at it, and it has a certain kind of way that it sort of measures the school. And that's a wonderful resource to use for scholarships as well as any other information. If a kid is interested in the athletics, you can see it'll have their website, have their athletic breakdown, what conference they're in, division and whatnot. So pursuing more regional local scholarships, that's what I was trying to emphasize. More accessible and a little bit better chance of gaining the scholarship than the national scholarships, like I said. And the national scholarships obviously have a lot more money too. And then writing the quality draft, not trying to reinvent the wheel. I think I think students know to do this. They already have their essays and what they write. We help students write, kind of formulate their essays once they have them. A lot of times, scholarships are coming in the springtime. But that's always something that, students can do afterwards. They don't have to stress about things to come up with. Sometimes adding what they've done within the school year after, all their college applications have been submitted. Okay, that's pretty much it. Thank you for attending. We're going to see you again in September, right? September 9th, okay, for our senior parent night. And you can still look for the emails, right? Is that the emails from our department? September 9th is how you can stay informed with our process, right?
Thank you guys again.